All right, good morning. We're going to see if we've got any, I call it noise, audio. Maybe that's a fancy word. I say audio, I say noise. I used the 3-minute countdown. We're about 5 after this morning, but we're glad you're joining with us first and foremost. And I was, last night, so Sunday morning, the stream went down. Stephen recorded the rest of it, so I got to figure out how to get that moved off of this over onto the thing so I can upload the full service for Sunday. Then last night, we were all connected, we were online, but none of the devices would connect back here to the mothership. And I couldn't fit, that was new. Wow. That was a new one on me. Normally it's something to do with the internet, but this time it was something to do with, anyway, so I went home and worked on that and was trying to test it, did a little hotspot, did my internet, and everything was connected. I thought, okay, we're going to wing it again tomorrow and just hope that, by magic only, because I'm unaware of how it actually works, I can come in here and set it up and we all connect. And sure enough, I got everything disconnected at home, brought it up here, everything reconnected back again. So here we are. At least I think we are. I'm going to make sure we got some audio going. Oh, that's not, that's what I'm looking for.
Well, of course, I couldn't get on there. But
so I sent you a text last night.
I know. I saw it at 10:30. I was getting ready to go to bed, and I saw this little thing. I said, "Oh, I have a text message," and so there it was you at 6:30 saying, no internet or something, and I'll see you tomorrow.
We got audio. Oh, I need to get comments up there. I'm not used to that. I always have to miss one thing whenever the comments are up. But anyway, turn that volume down.
I would have answered you at 10:30, but I thought, well, he might not be up.
Well, I'm trying to. I went to bed relatively early for me last night. Yeah. But anyway, so also the other thing I had to go on this morning at the house is we keep the animals, our zoo, out of our bedroom, and if we're not careful, our big cat will go in there and get underneath the bed.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to close him up, and so I was going to lure him out this morning, and I realized, well, the one thing he always comes out for are ice cream sandwiches, and so I had to pretend like I was eating ice cream. I don't eat ice cream sandwiches in the morning, and I'm really not a big fan of ice cream sandwiches, but Tanya gets those mini ones. She and Stephen and Joe like them. And so anyway, but I had to lure my cat out with an ice cream sandwich this morning. But among other things that we're doing, maybe we're here today though, talking about yet another hymn, and this is a doozy, a really really good hymn.
Yeah.
We sing it quite a bit. Jared and I sing it, the version that Mercy Me put out, I guess, probably almost 15, 20 years ago. But this is, I see you've got your.
Yeah, I just printed it out.
Hunter says, "Good morning, church family. Did someone say ice cream sandwiches?" Yes, Hunter. I'm talking about ice cream. We were starting. Any good church service starts off with ice cream sandwiches. But anyway,
I enjoyed this a lot.
Very good. And I had there's one. I learned one interesting thing about the author. Right. That I did not know before in studying for this one today.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure you've got it highlighted, but let's I'm going to pull some other things up just for me to make sure I got my notes straight here. But yeah, so let's talk about the love of God today, and I think let's do what we normally do, which is you'll kind of talk about what you learned. I'll add in any side comments that that I've got here. So. Talk about, again, is it Thomas?
Is it Frederick
Lehman, yeah.
Yeah.
Frederick Lehman.
Frederick,
I was thinking about his brother Thomas.
Born in Germany.
Yeah, and so there you go. Born in 1868.
That's right.
Mecklenburg.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. That's was interesting. Pasadena, California. Anyway, we'll get to that.
That's where he died, yeah.
We'll get to that where he passed away, and that was in 1953. So
yeah, he had a good 85 years.
Yeah, we think about the a lot. We've been doing hymns where people had not, lived anywhere near us, and here we have somebody who was, lived up into the 50s. So
that's
right. Kind of interesting. But anyway, The author of the third verse, however, did not. We'll get to that as well.
That's...
So let's talk about what you learned about the hymn, "The Love of God," today.
Okay, about the hymn itself and how he got
talk
to...
about the hymn and the individual. Yeah, whatever interesting things you want to.
Okay, because I got, like we already said, he was born in Germany, and when he was 4 years old, the family emigrated here.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, and he married. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 kids, almost one every other year. It sounded like my mother. I thought, yeah, I know, Mama, what you went through. But anyway, and the interesting thing that I found out now, he went to theological education in Northwestern College in Illinois, and then he had ministries in Audubon, Iowa, and New London, Indiana. But in 1911, he relocated to Kansas City, Missouri. Is that what you found out?
That was
I
it,
said,
yeah.
hey, look at this, where he plays a pivotal role in establishing the Nazarene Publishing Company.
Yeah, which now know is the Foundry.
The Foundry, yeah. So
fantastic.
I thought, cool.
Yeah,
hey,
I did not, that part I did not know.
I didn't either. I mean, I was reading a lot of other stuff, and I thought, let me see what this one says. And so that's why I had to write that down. So, but anyway, he devoted his life also to writing hymns, sacred songs. Mm-hmm. And according to his stats, over the years he wrote and published hundreds of songs and compiled 5 songbooks.
Yeah, wow.
And his compositions included, of course, "The Love of God," "The Royal Telephone," and "No Disappointment in Heaven." And I looked through that book, and the only one in there, he has only got one song in that new red book, and that's "The Love of God."
Yeah.
So I thought,
well,
I want to see what the Royal Telephone.
Which I was really then shocked. That's kind of what shocked me.
Yeah.
A little bit was that here he is establishing and played a pivotal role in the Foundry, and that was kind of the mode in which we got our Nazarene information out. Clearly, he was a Nazarene, and Pasadena was a large plot for the Nazarenes, if you will, and yet in our current hymnal, we use the blue one. We got no hymns by him.
None, yeah.
None,
right.
Zero, zip,
and
not.
That's older. I mean, you think that
you would think that here's this person affiliated with our denomination.
Yeah.
He might have been able to sneak 1 or 2 in, but no, that's nothing. We've got a high bar. Maybe we don't want to talk about telephone or anything, but
I don't know.
But yeah, so I thought that was very interesting. But it was in the Redback book. It's and I actually think it's in the I didn't look. I didn't look because I always just grab the red book for "Love of God."
Yeah.
I didn't see if it was in the new one.
The one that you loaned me?
The little
the little one that you
my little one that I have.
Because it's not in the red one that I borrowed from here.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Oh, it's not in the red one.
Not the one.
The big one I gave you. The
Love of God is in there.
Okay, so Love of God is in the newest
but no
one.
other one.
Yeah.
Because I checked. Because it has a list
Okay.
of authors in there and how many songs are in there.
Okay.
And the only one in there is the Love of God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, anyway,
go.
but anyway, it was an amazing story how this thing came about. But he was also a California businessman, and he lost everything in that business. So he had to take a job as a manual laborer in a Pasadena packing house. He packed oranges and fruit, lemons and stuff. So anyway, he went to church one morning, and the pastor preached on the love of God. And it must have been quite a sermon. I would love to get a copy of that sermon because it just hit him. And so it was a Sunday evening sermon, and he couldn't even sleep. He just kept thinking about that song all night. So the next morning, he was still thinking about it. So he had to go to work. He went to the packing house, and the song started coming together in his head. And so anyway, throughout the day, the words would continue to flow. And it says here, perhaps he jotted down words on the various pieces of broken crate as he went along. He could hardly wait to get home and commit them words to paper. So anyway, he got home. He hurried to his old upright piano, and he began arranging these words and composing a melody to fit them. And so pretty soon he had 2 stanzas completed.
Yep.
And he was saying, we have to have at least 3 stanzas. And they said back then, a song is not accepted unless you have at least 3 stanzas. Yeah. And whoever wrote this said, not like it is today, where you only really need 3 words. If you want. I'm trying to think of some songs we sing with only 3 words in them. But anyway.
Yeah. Some have a few more. We steer clear of those.
Yeah. So anyway, he tried to come up with a 3rd stanza, but he just couldn't do it. The words just wouldn't come. So then he remembered a poem that someone had given him years earlier. And so he hunted for it, and he finally found it. It was printed on a card, which he had been using as a bookmark. And so he read the words, and his heart was it just caught him. And so what a beautiful picture of God's love that they noticed. And then he noticed the writing at the bottom of the card. Someone had written these words were found written on a cell wall in a prison some 200 years ago. It is not known why the prisoner was incarcerated, neither is it known if the words were original or if he had heard them somewhere and had decided to put them in a place where he could be reminded of the greatness of God's love. Whatever the circumstances, he wrote them on the wall of his prison cell. In due time he died, and the men who had the job of repainting his cell were impressed by the words. Before their paintbrushes had obliterated them, one of the men jotted the poem down, and so that's how they were preserved. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, we can talk about what that poem is. We'll get to that.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway,
yeah.
so
Sister D says good morning.
Good
and
morning,
tells us to stay cool today.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. Everyone needs to be indoors today.
That's for sure. So anyway, he took this poem that he had all these years, and he went to the piano and started to voice the words with the melody he had written. They were a perfect fit. Mm-hmm. It was a miracle. They were a perfect fit. Yeah. The song was published, and of course today, and this is the last stanza of that poem. So this is another miracle, even I think greater than the first one that we mentioned. In later years, here's where it gets very interesting. The origin of these words became known to Alfred B. Smith, which reveals an even greater miracle in the writing of this song. The original 3rd stanza was written in Hebrew around the year 1050 A.D. That's a long time ago. by Meir ben Isaac Nehoria, a Jewish rabbi. Now God...
It translated into Hebrew from Aramaic.
Is that right?
It's an Aramaic poem, Hadamut.
Wow.
Did you know that part of it?
No, but I knew that.
So Rabbi Meir of Worms, translated that Aramaic poem, Hadamut, into Hebrew.
Okay, and then Rabbi Hertz attributed the words to a poem written 1050 by, wait a minute, first, let me see. It says, touch the man, confirm the words. Oh yeah, the rabbi, the Hebrew was found in a book of Jewish thought by Rabbi Hertz. Mm-hmm. And then he attributed the words to a poem written in 1050 by Meir ben Isaac Nehorai for the synagogue Pentecost celebrations. That was written for that. Well, then that was in 1050, and then now God, knowing that Laman was going to be writing a song, he also realized that he's going to have trouble writing a 3rd stanza. So he chose this rabbi, who he was not a Christian. He never accepted Christ as Messiah, but he did possess the skills. So that to paint this beautiful picture of God's love into words. So these words then would be preserved, and then this was hundreds of years later. Hundreds of years later, God would have them translated into English, which back in 1040 didn't even exist. The English language didn't exist. Into a language that then, by this prisoner, and he writes this English onto the
words
wall
that match in early
and to think God did all of this in the exact meter to fit layman's
Yeah,
melody.
yeah,
God,
yeah.
God, you are so great.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
It's-
back in the year 1000,
Yeah.
all the way up to, when was it written? 1917.
Oh yeah.
Is that right? 1917 is when he wrote
Yeah,
that?
1917. Yeah.
So
That's
900 years
crazy
later.
the story, right? So you think about it, it's English words on a on a wall, whatever, but English words which are translated from a Hebrew book
Hebrew.
of prayer,
Yeah.
which was the translation from an Aramaic poem. So you start going back, you start going,
Oh, my.
how what a twist to get these words to us, which means so much. Now, coincidentally, didn't know if you had this or not.
Right.
So I'll butcher pronunciations as always, but in the 31st surah of the Quran,
Oh,
written around the 7th century,
yeah.
are these words: "If all the trees on earth were pens, and the ocean were ink, replenished by 7 more oceans, the writing of God's wonderful signs and creations would not be exhausted.
Wow.
Surely God is almighty, all wise."
And that's the 7th
And
century.
this again, imagery used when man, and again, because that is, you think of all these different religions that speak about God. The Quran speaks about Allah, which again,
It's
not
the
going to go
same.
to that history,
Yeah.
but that's their word. But when they speak of God, they're all in agreement.
Yeah.
We do not have the time, ability, and anything to capture who He is.
Yeah.
And when you really think about it, we're all in agreement on that one.
That's
The Muslims, the Jews, the Christians,
Christians, yeah.
we are absolutely in full agreement
Yeah.
at a starting point that to write down the wonderful awesomeness, power of God, would drain the oceans dry and would take up. You can't do it, and that's kind of a.
It's nice to know we all agree on one thing.
We got nothing else. We got one thing though, and I'm just. When you look at that verse, and we're going to go back and read the song here in just a
yes.
minute, and we're going to read the verse we don't sing, which will be fun. We do first and third.
Yeah, this is true.
We do not, and I've been trying. I did better. Sunday we did all 3 verses of 2 songs because it just had 3 verses. But we're pretty bad about wanting to just leave one out.
Yeah, skipping.
Just to leave a verse out. There's actually, for those of you that are on social media, there is a Twitter page. And all they do is third verses of him. It's hashtag third verse, and which I think is fantastic because they're calling the attention to. They're all powerfully meaningful. Somehow we decide we got something else better to do. But anyway, yeah. So all this in agreement in how God and people who encounter God are overwhelmed by His the magnitude of who He is. And that is what we are with the love of God. And this goes back to the I showed it to you a while back. The scripture, how God lavished His love on us, and this is if you'll go watch Dr. Graves' sermon on YouTube, he talks about the great big giant truck, and it backs up and it dumps the love of God on him, and he looks
cool.
and there's just truck after truck after truck. How God lavishes love there, it's incomprehensible, the magnitude of God's love for us. And I actually watched a show recently, and in the show, it's a fictional show, but the son is not there for when his mother passes away, and knows all the conflicts of life. And she tells one of his friends she knows he'll eventually come back, and he comes back, and the friend says, and gives her the big speech of what his mom says, and one of the last lines says, "I love you more than any of your wrongdoings." And it kind of I'm watching that show, and it's a fictional show, and I'm serious. I'm thinking, wow.
Yeah.
If that doesn't speak to me about how much God loved all of us, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. The love of God. That's why we had John 3:16 up to open up the time here today. Is because he loved us while we didn't love Him, didn't acknowledge Him. He loved us, and especially for those of us that live now, we can think about all the people down through history, all the biblical characters, but think about us now. I'm not that old compared to history, And so I think that, he loved me so much that there was a plan set in place and executed and set forth that I would be able to grow up, early know the love of God, live and die a Christian, as we talk about dedicating our children. This is such a beautiful thought for us, the love of God. So let's read the love of God. Let's get back here to my lyrics. And
you notice I printed out the lyrics because that book is heavy.
Oh yeah, that's not. I gave you the heaviest hymnal I could find. I shouldn't have done that, but I did.
My purse is heavy too, so it's kind of hard.
So how about you read the first verse in the refrain, and then I'm gonna read the second verse, and then you'll read the third verse, and I'll read the refrain. That kind of splits it up a little bit. Okay.
Okay. The love of God is greater far than tongue or pen can ever tell. It goes beyond the highest star and reaches to the lowest hell. The guilty pair bowed down with care. God gave his son to win. His erring child he reconciled and pardoned from his sin. O love of God, how rich and pure, how measureless and strong. It shall forevermore endure, the saints and angels' song. We can sing with the angels and this very thing about his love, because the saints, we're the saints, and the angels' song.
Yeah, one of the translations that is used sometimes is the guilty pair bow down, and this says the wandering child is reconciled by God's beloved Son, the aching soul again made whole, and priceless pardon won.
Wow,
that's interesting.
Yeah,
I got several different texts in different hymnals how they appear.
Well, I wonder what the original. I mean, it's just a matter of translation.
Matter of getting things right. So, second verse says this, and ours says, I think it says a word we don't really use through hoary times. This says, when ancient times shall pass away, and human thrones and kingdoms fall, when those who here refuse to pray on rocks and hills and mountains call, God's love so sure shall still endure, all measureless and strong, grace will resound the whole earth round, the saints and angels' song. What's the rest of that one? Is that close to the?
Yeah, that's pretty close.
Pretty close. All right. Yeah. So go ahead and do that third verse with us.
Okay, here it is.
Yeah.
Could we with ink the ocean fill, and were the skies of parchment made, were every stalk on earth a quill, and every man a scribe by trade, to write the love of God above would drain the oceans dry, nor could the scroll contain the whole, though stretched from sky to sky.
Yeah. Oh, love of God, how rich and pure, how measureless and strong. It shall forevermore endure, the saints and angels' song. What a beautiful hymn! What a wonderful thought of that He has done all of this great scripture. There's nowhere we can go. That first verse reminds us, no height nor depth.
Yeah.
You think about Romans chapter 8
Yeah.
So beautifully captures that. It just we cannot escape what God has done.
That's right.
We can ignore it, but we cannot escape it, and it does not change the fact of what He has done for us. So praise the Lord. Just a wonderful, wonderful hymn. And
it's such a great appreciation that I have encountered now for that last verse, because God made it all happen.
Oh yeah,
He did.
A little casual aside.
How about try this one, son? I think it'll work out.
Yeah, it may work out here. It's also the beauty of it. I'll mention one thing about that. You think about the timing of songs and when the melodies that people put down, and then the beauty of poetry. And I think that's something that we've lost in the last 50 years is poetry. I grew up with a mom who was an avid reader. I became an avid reader, and even in school, we read and we wrote poetry. Now I'm not a poet. I write the stupid ones, but the idea is that to understand the beauty, and it's one of the beauties of, and again, partly because I grew up with it, but the words used in the King James translation are so poetic in the English. So when you think about the fact that in the book of Psalms, those were songs being sung, and then when they're translated, into poetry, into the English language, in that beautiful English language. And you look at some of the more modern translations, and they lose the beauty of the meter, if you will,
Right.
and the pacing of the words. And that's why when you think about how God uses poetry and music, and they come together beautifully by His design, that we should be able to sing praise to Him. And I think that's something that we've kind of lost in just generally reading and understanding poetic structure and metering. And that's why I think to an extent, maybe why some of our songs are getting simpler and simpler.
3 words.
3 words. It's simply because we're not looking at the complexity.
Yeah.
And the fact that literature and poetry are not everybody can do them. And so a little aside there on we've lost a little bit of that, but just a beautiful work of God that comes into this. Hunter lets us know that Green Eggs and Ham was his favorite poem. So hey, nothing wrong with Dr. Seuss. Nothing wrong with Dr. Seuss. Anyway, but
I loved Edgar Allan Poe. I used to scare my sister reading her.
Edgar Allan Poe,
in bed at night.
Of course, I am Frost. We learned that in school.
Sure.
And then Wadsworth Longfellow. And because again, I learned things like The Ride of Paul Revere. And Do Not Go Gentle Into That Good Night, which is famous for a lot of folks. The
Midnight Ride of Paul Revere. We memorized that in school.
Yeah, there are various things you did, and so we kind of think about the beauty of all of those things, and I've gone way off the rails with poetry now and the Green Eggs and Ham, but the idea of reading and seeing God's beauty in different works is vitally important for us. So anyway, but this song. The love of God is so powerful for us, and I want to encourage you today, live in that. Live deeply into the love of God. It is there for us today. Share the love of God with people around you today in air conditioning.
Absolutely.
Or maybe if you're about to go out, why don't you go ahead and do this today? And again, there are probably only a few of us on watching. I don't have a count. But whenever you watch this, during these hot days, stop by, get your little small cooler, I got a bag cooler. Put you a couple extra waters from your house. Everybody's generally got waters. Couple extra. You see somebody, give them a water.
Give them a drink. Yeah.
Even if they're a worker. Like I just passed by some guys down here. They got the big cooler on the back of the truck. But odds are a simple, common, polite gesture to let people know, hey, it's hot out here. I'm thinking about you. But let's see if we can't do our witnessing inside or something today. But hey, we want you to know this above all things. God loves you. And so do we. Want to wish you the most blessed of days. Glad we were online, stayed online with you today. And we'll see what happens. We're going to get testing done upstairs and see how that works again. But we just love you. Want you to have a wonderful, blessed day. And
have a safe holiday coming up.
It's a holiday weekend.
Be careful.
I've already seen a little funny that was on Facebook. I'll share it with you because you're not on Facebook. And again, I grew up in Walker County, so we can talk about Walker County Hospital. I actually worked there for a while, but Walker Regional is offering a discount this weekend, half off any amputations. Just enter the cost savings code #Hey y'all watch this. So hey, be safe this holiday season.
Don't blow no fingers.
Don't blow things up. Take care of yourself. But we will. We'll see you the next go around. I think we're gonna talk about hymns the rest of the summer. Let's just make that's fun.
That's fun. I mean, you guys need to do that. Find your favorite song, look up the author, and get the story of how these
see
people are
what has
incredible.
happened there. It's amazing. So hey, God bless you. Have a wonderful remainder of your day. We'll see you next time.